Hello, this is Dr. Lynn, and I teach one of the sections of ED 630 this semester along with Dr. Hopewell. And one of the things that we thought might be helpful to students is to provide you with some more real-time information about the capstone options. We mentioned those possibly to you during the first coaching session, and it's one of the decisions that's going to be important for you to make. And so we invited a special guest today, and I'll have her introduce herself and explain why she's here.
I am Dr. Faye LeDuc-Pelster. I coordinate the graduate programs in the School of Education, specifically the Master of Science in Curriculum and Instruction, as well as the Master of Education in Reading. And so Dr. Lynn and Dr. Hopewell came up with the idea to put this video together to give you some more information about your options for capstone or your culminating piece in the program. And I think it's a great idea. So we're going to talk about some of those today.
Okay, since we're focusing on the capstone project, one of the things that we'd highly recommend that you do is, in Dr. Hopewell's section and also in mine, you've been provided a copy of the graduate handbook, whether it's the MSCI graduate handbook or the MED graduate handbook. So find that and take a look at it. And especially we're going to today be talking about the capstone piece. And for the MED handbook, that is on page 10, and for the MSCI book, that's on page 15. So have that open as Dr. Luke Pelster is talking today and giving us more background. It'll make it more meaningful, and you can take some notes. So let's get started, shall we?
Okay.
You are the graduate coordinator, and so you're the go-to person to explain to us a little bit about the capstone project. What is it? Why do they do it? When do they do it? What's the key things they need to know now?
Okay, so first of all, what is the Capstone Project? The Capstone Project is designed to be sort of a culminating event in this journey that you're taking to pursue and obtain a master's degree. So the Capstone Project is designed in a way that we hope that you will be able to use what you've learned through the coursework at Black Hills State University, as well as in combination with your experiences gained from the time that you've spent in K-12 classrooms, and be able to combine those two things and develop this capstone project. In a little bit, we're going to talk about the different options for the capstone, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what is it, it's a piece that you put together to culminate your experience here at Black Hills State University. And that's sort of the why too. As a graduate faculty, we sat around the table and we thought about what are some things that we want to give students the option to do that really will allow them to use what they've learned while they were here, again, in combination with your experience, to produce this piece at the end of your program.
Thanks for that background. One of the things that some students might be thinking is, if I'm just starting my graduate program, why do I need to be thinking about the end project now? What would your thoughts be about that?
Right. So I think we'll be better able to answer that question once we know what our choices are. But when we describe and define the choices that you have for the capstone project, you will notice that some of them are really going to require you to do some thinking about this end piece now. Even though it's early in your program, I think that thinking about your capstone choice and possibly even making your capstone choice now will help you sort of navigate your path to the end of the program. I think it will have implications for you along the way. So I think once we start to define what those options are, you'll see why it's helpful to be thinking about that now.
Okay, so one of the things that I suggest to you as faculty is knowing about this now can save many of you some time as you're going through your graduate program, because many of the things that you're going to be doing in other courses might attribute towards that capstone project, but especially relevant to the ED 630 course. The choice that you make, your research project that you're going to be designing and then implementing could actually be your capstone project. So you could be working at the beginning of your degree and actually achieving some work that's going to save you time in the end. So let's get into, what are the things that they should think about when they're thinking about which choice do I want to make?
I think, as Dr. Lynn mentioned, be thinking about the work that you're doing now and how you might want to extend that work. So, in other words, the study that you're planning for Dr. Hopewell's 630 and Dr. Lynn's section of 630, what would you like to be able to do with that information? I think having that in the back of your mind in terms of, once you gather this data, what would you like to be able to do with it? Thinking about that answer to that question will help you to make a decision as far as which capstone option you would like to pursue.
Okay, great. Let's jump into what your options are. It's important to give students choices.
Yes.
And even when you're graduate students, to know that you have choices about what you might choose to do for the capstone and how that's going to affect your decisions in ED 630 and ED 750. So would you like to start with the MED in reading? What would their options be?
I actually think we could probably combine, right?
Okay.
Because I think the options, I know the options are the same. Whether you're pursuing a Master of Science in Curriculum and Instruction or a Master of Education in Reading, you're going to have the same 5 options for a capstone project. And so I think we'll just talk about those and define what those are. And Dr. Lynn, please jump in if I leave anything out as I go through this list. Traditionally, or in the past, students have had 3 choices for a capstone option. And those choices included a professional portfolio, a thesis, or a collaborative research project. See, I took notes because I knew I was going to forget something. So we had those 3 options, and in the last semester, we've decided to expand from 3 to 5 capstone options. So the 2 new ones are to present professional development and also to present at a state, local, national, or virtual conference. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about each of those. I would say that historically the most common capstone choice has been the professional portfolio of growth. If students were in the MSCI program, they created a portfolio that matched the standards set by the National Board for Professional Teachers, and they wrote a reflection related to each of those standards, and they included an artifact that demonstrated how they met that particular standard. So those portfolios included a reflection for each of the NBPTS standards, as well as an artifact that generally came from a course they completed during their master's degree. And that completed the professional portfolio of growth. For the MSCI, students in the Master of Education in Reading did the same thing, except that they included, or they worked off of, the International Reading Association standards for reading professionals that were revised in 2010. But the same process, they wrote a reflection for each of those standards, and they included an artifact that demonstrated to the graduate faculty that are reading these portfolios, it demonstrated that that particular candidate had met that standard or those standards, that set of standards. So in the past, many of our students have chosen the professional portfolio of growth. And I think that you can see how that would impact your work along the way, because as you're working on these assignments during your coursework, if you decide that the portfolio is the right choice for you, then I'm sure you would be thinking in the back of your mind, like, this particular assignment really matches this standard and demonstrates that I've met this standard.
Okay, since we have so many diligent students out there, I want to reiterate something that she said in just a little different way. So for example, in ED 630, if you've decided, I think I really would like to do the portfolio for my capstone option, the research project that you complete and the report that you complete at the end of ED 750 can become your artifact for the portfolio. You wouldn't be working on the reflections for any aspect of your portfolio until you take the capstone course at the end of your graduate program. So don't overwhelm yourself by thinking you have to do it all now. It's just primarily working towards those artifact collections.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
Good point. Okay, so that's the professional portfolio of growth. The second most common option that students have pursued in the past is the collaborative research project. We call it the CRP. And this involves students pairing up with a faculty member from Black Hills State University and working together to take the research that you have conducted in Ed 630 and Ed 750 and really sort of molding the results of that research study into the form of a journal article The faculty member from BH and the graduate candidate work very closely together to, like I said, just really sort of work that around into an article format. And then the requirement is that that article is submitted for publication. It is not required that the article is published. It's required that the faculty member from BH and the graduate candidate will submit that article for publication.
So again, if an ED 630, if your choice is, I really would like to challenge myself to write an article, and it would be exciting to possibly get it published in a professional journal, we really encourage that. So one of the things that we would do is to try to pair you up with a faculty member while you're working towards writing or designing your proposal, and then definitely when you're implementing and analyzing the data. The earlier that faculty member can work with you, the more productive and the better option, a better possibility actually that you could get that article published when you have that expertise working with you. So for ED 630, it's important for us to know that decision really quickly. There's only a few faculty members, and sometimes getting students paired with a faculty member early on is a challenge. If you already have established relationship with a faculty member and you're thinking, gosh, I would really like to work with this person because I know that that's area, my topic is in their area of expertise, then we encourage you to make those connections and see if they have the time available to do that. If not, let either Dr. Hopewell know or myself for the students in my section, and we'll try to get some of those good pairings put together for you.
Good. The third option is the thesis. And this involves, there's some steps involved in this process. If you choose to do the thesis, this is definitely something that BH faculty need to be aware of right now for a number of reasons. Number one, we want to start providing the student with information about what is a thesis, how do you begin developing a thesis, what is the purpose for the thesis. And in addition to that, we have to identify a thesis committee so that you can work closely with an advisor to develop a proposal that you would present to your thesis committee. Once that was approved by your committee, then you move into the next phase of writing where you compose additional chapters or additional pieces for your thesis before you do sort of a culminating presentation where you present your research to that committee. So should students decide to pursue the thesis, that's something, again, we need to know about now so that we can begin identifying the members of your graduate thesis committee.
Okay, so the thesis option is definitely more in depth in terms of work and scope of your study, and then collaboration with faculty. One of the times that I really highly recommend students to think about that as their option for the Capstone project is when you're thinking, I really see myself someday going forth and getting a doctoral degree. If you do the thesis option as a master's student, it really takes you a long way to preparing for doing that dissertation. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's a good choice when you're looking at that long-term goal rather than just the short term of completing this course, completing your master's.
Absolutely. Good point. All right. The next option is delivering professional development. We know that many of the students that complete our graduate programs in the MSCI and the MED go on to serve districts and buildings as reading specialists, math specialists, technology integrationists, and science specialists. And so we wanted to present our graduate students with an option for the capstone that is really meaningful to the work that they're going to be doing in reality once they complete the degree. So we've decided to let graduate students choose to deliver professional development to peers in their local building or district. And this could be a matter of sharing the results of the research that you complete in Ed 630 and Ed 750. It could also be sort of a separate topic from what you've researched in 630 and 750. For example, if you decide that you want to choose delivering professional development as your capstone option, and your building or district has a very specific need that's sort of related to your area of expertise or your area of emphasis in the graduate program, then it would be very meaningful for you to plan and deliver professional development to meet that need. So if delivering professional development is the capstone choice that you you think is the right fit for you, then that, again, that's something that we would like to know about now, because we can start providing you with information to set you up to be successful in your delivery of that professional development.
And I would just add to that, one of the overall overarching goals of action research is to contribute to a body of knowledge and education. And we've had some great success with a couple of students that actually piloted this option this summer for us to see if that was something that we wanted to try to continue to offer to graduate students. And they got so much meaning out of their action research as teachers that they felt that they would be really remiss in not sharing it with other teachers in their school. So they conducted a professional development training, and the findings of their study are now actually a part of a school-wide strategy to addressing student behaviors in their classrooms. So
Yeah.
definitely a great success for their research study.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fay, would you like to share maybe a couple of other examples? You had a student that presented at a conference, I believe.
I actually had a student who decided she wanted to deliver professional development, but she delivered it to a group of undergraduate elementary education majors. Her research was on reading comprehension, reading comprehension instruction, and so she went to a methods course for elementary education majors, and she shared the results of her research with them. And it really obviously has a direct impact on where they're at in their journey to becoming an educator. And so you can see a couple of different examples. Dr. Lynn talked about the two students that shared the results of their research with their peers in their building, and it's really led to something even bigger, which is, like she said, that's our goal. And I had, the student that decided that this would be really applicable for undergraduate elementary education majors, so she found that group and shared her results with them. So delivering the professional development can look a variety of different ways. And the important thing is that we want to, number one, as Dr. Lynn said, have it contribute to the field of education. And number two, we want it to meet a need in the field. And so we think this option is exciting, and we've had success with it. And so we're anxious to present that as an option. Our fifth and final capstone option is presenting at a conference. And so this is a new option that we are giving to graduate students. Again, we feel like this would be a very meaningful, authentic choice for those of you that want to present at a national, a state, a local, or a virtual conference. And again, similar to the professional development delivery, this could be a matter of you sharing the research that you've conducted in Ed 630 and Ed 750. That would certainly be meaningful. It may also involve sharing different information. For example, if you're in the Master of Education in Reading and you'd really like to present at the IRA conference, it doesn't necessarily mean you'd have to take your research from 630 and 750, although you could if you've gone through the IRB approval process. But you might also just look at the strands for the conference and plan to deliver a presentation that addresses one or more of those strands. Another thing that we want to mention in this video is that we know that in Ed 630, you're beginning your graduate career, you're completing candidacy requirements, and now we're asking you to start thinking about the end of your program, the capstone choice. And we know that seems like a lot. One of the things that we want to remind you about is that Ed 630 is continued into Ed 750. The work that you start in 630 will be continued into your next research course. And then Ed 790 is the capstone course that you don't take until the end of your program. So in between the time that you'll take 630 and 750, you'll also be taking several content courses specific to your area of emphasis before you're ever asked to bring all of this to culmination in your capstone work, which will be completed during Ed 790 at the end of your program.
Okay, so we were hopeful that this video would help you with some forward thinking, some planning, and one of the things that Dr. Hopewell and I are very interested in is timing. And so one of the things that we're hoping you'll do is for our coaching session, our second coaching session, have an idea of the options that you're thinking about. We'll be happy to dialogue with you about that. As many of you are learning, ethics is a really important part of research. And so one of the things that we need to take into consideration is the timing to get through all of the appropriate stages of approval for your study. So do some thinking, be prepared with some questions when we have our coaching session, and we hope that this video was informative and helpful to you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.